Welcome back. I think we can all agree seeing The Father is an extraordinary experience. It's my pleasure now to also welcome back the director of the film. I mentioned Florian at the top of the show, but I'd like to give you a little bit more insight to who he is. He is a novelist and a playwright and a theater director, and now you can add to his credits an incredible film director, one that we will hope we will be seeing many, many more films from. He is, according to the London Times, the most exciting playwright of our time and has written more than 10 plays, including, in addition to The Father, The Mother, The Truth, The Lie, The Height of the Storm, and most recently, The Sun. His plays have been staged in 45 different countries, and The Father was described as the most acclaimed new play of the last decade by The Guardian. He has won many awards in Paris and London and New York. And again, The Father is his amazingly directorial debut. Welcome, Florian.
Thank you. So this is, for me, a real joy and a great honor to be here with you and to give Anthony Hopkins this award for his incredible career. To me, he's one of the greatest living actors, if not the greatest, and I've always had a huge admiration for his work and for his way of using words, characters, and situations to create a feeling of danger, anxiety, threat, uncertainty, or simply pure emotion. And this is the reason why I wanted to work with him so much. And the truth is, when I started to write the script of The Father, I already had his face in mind and the absolute conviction that he would be like no other, amazingly powerful in his part. So the film is about a man losing his bearings, or about a man losing everything, actually. And in my mind, to explore this intense fragility, Anthony Hopkins was the only one. And that's the reason why, by the way, the main character's name in the film is Anthony. This is because I wrote The Father for him. And of course, it was only a dream at that stage, because everything, including film, starts with a dream. And I was aware that it was not an easy one to fulfill, because I'm French, as you can hear, and I come from theater. It was my first feature film, and he's Sir Anthony Hopkins. But until someone comes and tells you it is not possible, it means that potentially it is. So I sent the script to his agent, and I waited. And one day I received a call of someone letting me know that Anthony wanted to meet with me. So I took a plane to LA to have breakfast with him. And I think I will never forget that moment, because it was such a powerful moment. And this is how everything started for The Father. Of course, it's very impressive to meet a legend like Anthony Hopkins. But I have to say that after 5 minutes, I knew it would be almost easy to work with him, because he's not only this extremely talented artist we know he is, but also an extraordinary human being, and it matters. I mean, during the meeting and during the whole process of the film, he has been so kind to everyone, so generous to the film and to me, and so humble, I would say. And for an actor, being humble means to be completely dedicated to the story you want to tell, and to allow the director to make the film he really wants to make, and in a way to serve something bigger than yourself. I have to say that what has impressed me the most maybe was that even with this incredible career of his, and although he really doesn't have anything to prove anymore, Anthony is still an artist, daring and willing to take risks, to explore new emotional territories, and to do something completely different and new, which is, in my opinion, the signature of the greatest actors. So, dear Anthony, it's such an honor for me to share that moment with you. And with all my heart, I wanted to thank you for what you have done and for what you are doing. And congratulations for this deserved award.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you very much. It's a great honor, and I'm most touched and honored, because I think singularly one of the best films I've been involved in because it was remarkably easy, and I had to check out recently. I thought, is that Florian's first directorial movie? And it is. I thought that's impossible, but it is, because he was so creative in his direction, and the script is superb. When you have a superb script, you don't need anything else. And but I'm deeply honoured, and I want to thank you, Florian, and the incredible cast, Olivia Colman, Olivia Williams, and everyone. And it really is a great honour that I'm still able to work at my age. But I also want to, because we're going through strange times, and I want to dedicate whatever I've received now, this wonderful award, my appreciation to the people who are working so hard to save people's lives all over the world, scientists, doctors, and come together and put away, putting aside different opinions, but to thank them and send my heartfelt sympathy to people who've lost people in this to this virus, but that's what I really want to say. But to go back, I'm really appreciative of this. And thank you so much. Thank you, Florian, from the bottom of my heart. Yeah. It was. I've the last 5 years, I think, have been incredibly lucky for me, because I went back to England to do, 5 different films, and back to Europe, and working with remarkable directors like Richard, and working with actors like Emma Thompson and Jim Carter and all of them, and Ian McKellen in The Dresser. But this was particularly powerful for me because it was such an easy part to play. I think because I'm now approaching 83, it wasn't that so much. I mean, my mind, I think my brain is intact, but it was so, well, in a nutshell, the script is so good. And when you have a great script, you don't need to do anything else. You don't need to, actors want to rewrite. No. I only asked Florian for one change. Could I change one line? It was about, I don't like coffee. And there was about coffee. So I said, can I change it to tea? I said, can I change this? Yes, I think so. But that was the only requirement. And then to work with an incredible group of people. It's like playing tennis. I don't play tennis, but, or ping pong, it's so easy when you have great people to work with. It really, as they say over here in America, walk in the park, but it really is. And it was a joy. And I look back with great nostalgia to that short period, in that little apartment set. It was breathtaking. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, Sir Anthony. Thank you, Florian. Before I introduce the moderator for the conversation, I want to show you, Anthony, this is the Mill Valley Award.
Oh, thank you.
And we will be sending it to you. I'm sorry we're not in person to hand it to you.
That's wonderful.
It's very heavy. It's substantial. Yeah. And it's our just honor to have you as a Mill Valley Film Festival awardee. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Florian. Thank you, Sir Anthony. It is really our honor to be honoring you. I'd like to introduce now David Thompson, who's the moderator. You know David well from his many books that he has written over the years. He has written over 30 books. He was born in London, but a longtime resident of San Francisco. You certainly know the biographical dictionary of film, Suspects in Sleeping with Strangers, but I'd also like to bring your attention to one book, and this is something I've never shared with you, David, but during the festival time, I'm up at night a lot, usually about 3 a.m. And obviously you're very stressed. You're dealing with all these aspects of economics and working with distributors and sales agents, etc. And there was a book that came out at that time called Moments That Made the Movies. And I would read that most every night for a good half an hour to 45 minutes in the middle of the night. and it would remind me of why I do what I do. So putting aside all those negotiations to get a film and all the conversations with generous donors, this was my respite. And I want to, now that I have the opportunity to thank you for that, I'd like to do so. All I can say is that David is one of the most amazing film writers of our generation, and he's also a tremendous film critic. So without further ado, please welcome David Thompson.
May I call you Tony?
Tony, yes.
Okay. I wanted to start by asking a question about this film, but in a way that might take us into your larger process. So it seemed to me that there were at least 3 ways you might have got into this part. You might have said, well, I have to go and meet a lot of people with Alzheimer's, whether I've known them before or not, and I need to study them, perhaps read about that condition. Or 2, I have such a great script here. What I need to do is absorb that script, learn it, obviously, but absorb it and understand it, talk to Florian, and have it in me. Or 3, and I'm referring here to something you once said was the best advice you ever had, and it came from a great source. You might just stand at the edge of the pool, so to speak, and jump in. Laurence Olivier once told you, I think, when you were beset by stage fright, maybe, you've just got to get up there and jump off the edge. And I have an instinct that you are a jumper off the edge, but talk about that, if you will.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, David. Good to meet you. Yes, Olivia said that. I was doing Three Sisters, playing Andre. And I was also understudying him in Dance of Death as the Captain Edgar. And I had to go on for him when he had to go into hospital. That was a terrifying night, but I seemed to do okay. But he was my mentor in a way, and he said all he wanted from his actors, because he directed the Three Sisters, just courage. And I remember the first day of rehearsal, and this stayed with me for all my life. That was over 50 years ago, many, many years ago, 1967. And we went into the whole cast, Joan Plowright and Robert Stevens, and all the scripts were there on the table, the play, and with yellow pencils, all meticulously set out by Olivia. He said, right, I want you all to learn the script as fast as possible. Just learn it. He said, we'll start rehearsing tomorrow. Have a reading now. He said, I do beg you, dear boys and girls. He said, learn the words, learn the script, then we can move on. And he said, you may not want to do that, but I'm going to insist on it. And I thought, that's a good idea. And I discovered something in that process. I would usually go to the pub and learn my lines. But I was quite studious, and I'd go back to my digs, and I'd go over and over and over the script, over the part. And something happened to me. I thought, this is terrific, because it's releasing me from tension, releasing me from vagueness, releasing my mind from what's the next line, to not analyze and overthink it. And I remember that when we started rehearsal proper, and I was off the book, as they say. I'd learned all my lines in the first week. And I remember the feeling of tremendous relaxation. And here was the governor himself, the boss, Olivia. And I remember going on without the book, but I wasn't going to show off, but I had the book in my hand to pretend I didn't know that. I knew the lines. But I remember that moment of freedom. And at the end, just before lunch, it was Act 1. And one of the actors said, oh, you know your lines, you. I said, yeah. I was trying to be modest. And Olivia said, well done, baby. He said, well done. He said, that's the way to do it. And then I started feeling confident. And there was a scene where I had to do this complete breakdown in Act 3. And in Act 4, there's another big scene. Not those moments, but those scenes where I had to, which were complicated. And I went to rehearsal, and I felt this tremendous confidence in myself. Not bravura, but a sense of ease. And suddenly the scene happened, boom. And emotions came up and things happened. And afterwards he said to me, he took me aside, he said, that is it. He said, now don't add anymore. That's it. Just keep it pure. Don't add, don't embellish. He said, because when you're a young actor, you want to embellish and improve it. Don't improve it, it's perfect. So of course my vanity wanted to improve it. But no, then I learned from that. I said, if it works, work it. Just don't make a moment of it, but do it. But when you have a superb play like Chekhov's Three Sisters or Florian's play or screenplay, Christopher Hampton's screenplay or Florian's play, then it makes it easy. I don't have to push anything. So I am of that to jump in. And I set out to make it as easy as possible. I'm sorry, I'm taking a long time to answer this, but one thing I do remember, Olivia said, he said, when you're a young actor, he said, you have to find the middle man. That's what he said. You have to find the center of the person you're playing. And I asked myself, how long does that take? He said, about another 30 years. And I said, oh, okay. He said, because then he said something, he said, it took him many years to begin to understand how to play the Scottish play, Macbeth, for example. He had to be at the right age to play it. And he said, by that time, when you reach a certain age, you're either too old but you can be technically okay at a certain age, but when you get older, you've learned more experience, you've had more experience of life, and life becomes easier, and the performance becomes easier. And that's what I put it down to, the pleasure I had in working on this film. It's a long answer, but...
No, it's a great answer. But now, tell me, did you do anything in the way of what I would call research?
No.
About Alzheimer's?
No, not at all. No. My parents both died. They didn't suffer from Alzheimer's or dementia. My mother, when she was very ill, and she was 89, she died. And her only little mental quirk was she thought somebody was stealing from her. And she was depressed and paranoid about that. And I said, no, nobody's, she thought somebody was taking things from her. And that was a fear of possessions being taken. And then I think she realized that that she was going to die anyway. But I've only witnessed dementia in one form. There's a friend of mine whose father-in-law, living out here in California, thought he was in New York. And he'd look at the Pacific Ocean. He said, why is the Hudson so wide? And of course, they said, it's okay, Pop. He said, you're out here now in California. Oh, where's Miriam? Oh, well, she's out at the moment. She'd been dead many years. And I found that the loneliness, but he seemed quite content, and he'd drink his tea and eat his meal, and they took care of him. But that's the only time I've experienced it and watched it.
Yes. There are moments in the film where you are alone in the flat. And I agree with what you said earlier, that the flat is a character in this story. And there's a particular moment where you're leaning against the kitchen counter, and your body takes a very strange sort of warped shape. And I wondered how far that was what I would call natural, or how far that was worked out. Because when you're in the flat alone, I think there's a tremendous insight into this character. And he's a man of, well, you tell me about the man. What do you think has happened in his early life?
Well, that scene in the kitchen, if I remember, there's a soundtrack of Norma, Bellini's Norma.
Absolutely.
And I love that piece. And the two pieces that Florian and I talked about, there was the Pearl Fishers and Norma. at Bellini.
Yeah.
And that music helped me a lot. And I've got a bag or something, a paper bag, and it's the music. I'm always moved by music. I'm always brought to tears by music, especially the female voice. And in the Pearlfishers, it's a male voice, a male tenor. But there's something but particularly the female voice. It pulls up emotions for me, which I don't know where they come from. Really painful. I don't mean pain, my own pain, but the pain of life itself, you know.
Yes.
And so that music helped me. I think it was played live. Yes, it was. And so I just drifted and improvised that. I improvise. My basic technique is to, as I said, was just to learn the lines, learn the text so deeply and powerfully, fill the brain with as much information as I can about the text, then sift through it, see what's underneath the lines, not being method or anything like that, but to break it up and then reassemble it, put it back in the head, put it back in the suitcase away, tuck it in bed in my brain. And then on the morning of the shoot or of rehearsal, whatever it is, relax, let go. And something else comes over and it takes you over. I mean, I'm not walking in a state of hypnosis, but it's a state of being, of feeling the pain, of feeling the emotions, of feeling the loneliness. At the same time, I have to tell my brain that I'm only playing a game on it. You know, I don't become immersed so that I, you know, for example, I dry on the line and say, sorry, can we start again? What's the line? Or as soon as the scene's over, I'll have a cup of tea. So I'm not immersed in it.
Right.
So all I can sum it up by saying is that acting has become, particularly in this one, very easy for me, very simple, easy, and something I've always aspired to want to be at ease and not let acting show, not just be it.
You succeed completely.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
But now, this man's life, Anthony's life in the play, is a life in which different versions of his existence are almost competing. He thinks he knows what he's doing, but then other people don't fit in with that script.
Yeah.
And I wondered how far you felt the whole thing was a commentary on acting, because after all, you have played hundreds of parts.
Yes.
Are they in your head still? I mean, yes. Are they there? And do they sometimes sort of compete with or add to your own life?
Oh, yes, they're all in there. And again, to quote Olivia, he said, never be ashamed to steal. Steal from the best.
Yes.
And he said about people like Ronald Colman. You know. But he said, so I take whatever I can. And I try to not be repetitive. Of course, it's one's ego says, oh, that's a little trick that works. Try that. But then it's a good thing to resist it. Say, no, don't do that. Let's just do what's slightly different. Yes, I do. I think the accumulation of work over the years has helped me and filled me. I mean, I can remember every line of Lear, for example, or The Dresser, or whatever it is. And but of course, you know, when I'm playing the father, I don't need to refer to all that. But my body knows the way around. My body and nervous system, they know the way around. And I sometimes wonder, it's quite an extraordinary thing in my life, because I was thinking this morning, I think I was slightly dyslexic, severely dyslexic as a kid, couldn't understand things. So I had to learn through lines. I couldn't read and I couldn't understand arithmetic, and I couldn't put things together. And I think and then I became an actor by sheer accident. And so over the years, I've readjusted my brain by learning text, and I learn poetry, I learn masses of stuff. I love to Yeats and Dylan Thompson, you know, Shakespeare and so on and so forth. And to learn, because it's readjusted my brain. So it's a comfortable mechanism for me. I don't suffer anxiety before going on stage, and I don't eat my insides out trying to be what I am. I remember a young actor I was working with many years ago, and he was getting himself all steamed up, and I don't want to mention him. He's a wonderful actor, but he was getting himself all worked up. I said, well, what's the problem? He said, I'm trying to become the part. I said, you are the part. You were cast in it, you know. And John Dexter said that to me, the great director, John Dexter, when I was doing Equus. He said, because I'd fill my text, my pages with objectives and sense memory and all that, and notes. He said, throw it all away, just learn the lines and show up and do it. He said, you can do it. Don't underestimate yourself. You can do it, just do it. And I say this to young actors, you know, when I work with them, just do it, just do it. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be great. It doesn't have to be perfect. Just have a go at it. Jump in.
You said something about making it seem and feel easy. And when I was watching the film, at I suppose, the climax scene, the scene where you're with Olivia Williams,
yeah,
and where you want your mummy.
Yeah.
It's a heartbreaking scene. It might seem to be a difficult scene for an actor in that it's digging so deep, but I had the feeling that you had done it easily, that it came to you as easily as, say, Hannibal Lecter came to you. And I just wanted to ask you, did you shoot that many times or not so many times? That scene with Olivia Williams at the end.
We shot it twice, and the first time Florian wanted me to do it again. I thought I can't do that again, because I can't do that again. So I had to take a breather. I had to take some break from the set. It was the only time I've ever been kind of upset, because I thought, I don't think I can do it again. So I went away and I walked away, and I went, you know, I didn't walk off, but I went to just have a breather. Then I came back and we did it the second time. And something had changed in my brain, I think. I'll intercede this with a story. It's a story about Kirk Douglas. And he was on a film with Lionel Jeffries, Lust for Life. And Lionel Jeffries, who was playing the doctor, had been called in too early, 5 days too early, so he didn't have time to prepare. And he was embarrassed, and he thought he was going to be fired because he couldn't learn the lines, because they pulled the whole schedule back to front. And he had a long speech. Anyway, cut a long story short, Kirk Douglas knew that something was going wrong with Lionel. And he said, what's your problem? He said, well, this is happening to me. And he said, okay, let's go and have a walk. They walked around the field somewhere. Good. I'm going to have a day off today. And he said, I've got a stomach bug. And he took the day off. Yeah. He said to Lionel, he said, just learn the lines tomorrow. They did this. But he took Lionel around. He said, just have a breather. Just walk away from the scene. Take a little walk. And something changes in the atoms in the body and the brain, whatever. And the molecules of the... And that's what I did. And I came back. And why that scene was painful, because that word mummy was my own mother. That was my own mother. And I went back to my childhood. And it was so painful, that word. And I couldn't sort of take it. It was the only time I knew that I had to show the emotion, but it kind of overwhelmed me when that scene came in the first take, and that was possibly over the top, I don't know. But I knew it was there, but I didn't know how to control it, really. It was messy. So the second time we did it, and it felt apt and right at the time. Because I'll throw a little story. There's the story about Susan Strasberg. She was doing a diary of Anna Frank in New York, and her father, the great Lee Strasberg, was there. And one night, and she didn't feel it, and she was very angry and upset with herself. And her father came around afterwards. And he said, that was great. She said, no, I didn't feel it. He said, it doesn't matter. He said, the night you did feel it, it wasn't good. He said, you didn't feel it tonight. He said, that's your technique. He said, you can't apologize. He said, that's it. forget it. So he didn't feel it. He said, we felt it. You may not have. He said, but we did the work for you. So.
You were born into a culture where theater was what acting was. I know Richard Burton was a big influence in your early life, and you worked in theater. You've done extraordinary things in theater, but I'm very interested in why and how you discovered the cinema was more you than theater. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I during those post-war years and the late war years, 1940s, 45, I saw lots of Warner Brothers movies, and I was entranced by the movie and those black and white movies from Warner Brothers. And then I had no idea that I was going to become an actor. I went to college, wanted to be a musician. Anyway, so I ended up in this business as an actor, and always felt a bit of a fraud because things came easily to me, Within a decade, some extraordinary things had taken shape in my life. I left school in 1957. 10 years later, I was understudying Olivia at the National Theatre. None of it made any sense to me. So I look back on my life, I think, well, I can't take credit for any of it because it's impossible that these things happened to me when I was such a so-called loser, not a very good student, and all these extraordinary things had happened. And so, what's the point of what I was trying to say? So I look back. So I felt because it came easily to me, and the successful years suddenly blossomed, boom, and I was there. I couldn't understand why. Opportunities or kismet, whatever it was, and I thought, how extraordinary. So I felt a bit of a fraud. I thought, I'm not really qualified to do any of this. And on the stage, I just I couldn't relax enough to, I suppose what I'm saying is I'm not a team player. I'm not good in groups. I'm not good. I mean, I love working with actors. I love working with them, but I still don't feel I fit in. So in the theatre, that's a pretty difficult situation to be in. And the repetition got to me. Now, I admire people like Ian McKellen, Judi Dench, and people like Maggie Smith and people like that, and who could do that. It just wasn't in my nature. I couldn't do it. So the very first film I was in was The Lion in Winter with Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn. And that was remarkable because that was 10 years after I left drama school. After I left, good God, 12 years after I left school. I was in the film with The Lion in Winter, Peter O'Toole and Katharine Hepburn. These two extraordinary actors. And I thought, what on earth happened to me? I thought, none of this is real. None of this can be happening. And I thought, well, obviously something's going on, but I don't know if I feel a bit of a fraud. And but I remember working with Hepburn, and she said, don't act, you don't have to act. She said, just be what you are, just learn the line sharp and do it. She said, watch Spencer Tracy and Bogart and people like that. And I love that process. I mean, I love filming. I just enjoy it. And I took her advice, let the camera do the work. Sometimes I tell maybe eat the scene once in a while, but generally let the camera do the work and not mess about with, not embellish too much.
You talked about that, not being a team player, more of a loner. And I can see that a lot of your great parts are very alone men.
Yes.
And I think of Silence of the Lambs. I remember when I saw Silence of the Lambs, I had not read the book. I'd seen the previous film. But I said to myself, after you were on for like 2 minutes, best supporting actor, give it to him straight away. And in truth, it's a supporting part.
Yeah.
But you made it not just central in that film, you made Lecter central in our culture. And I wonder, did you have the feeling that you were doing something, not necessarily consciously, but in your being to make this terrible man almost adorable. Do you know what I mean about that?
Yes, I do.
What did it feel like doing that part?
It was wonderful. I was in the theatre doing a play in the West End. My agent sent the script over, I read it. And he said, Silence of the Lambs. So I read 10 pages of it and I phoned him. I said, I'm not going to read anymore. Is this an offer? He said, I'm not sure yet. I said, well, I don't want to read anymore. He said, why not? I said, this is a part of a lifetime. So I said, I can't. He said, what do you mean? I said, it's an amazing part. So I knew it. I knew how to play it. And a call came in just before I went on stage, about 7 o'clock at night. He said, Jonathan Demme is coming tomorrow night on Saturday to have dinner with you in London from New York. He wants you to do it. With Jodie Foster. I thought, oh my God. So I read the part. And it was the most electrifying piece of writing. Ted Talley wrote the script. And I knew Lecter. I knew that, well, there's one other figure I played, Lambert LaRue, in
Yes.
David Hare's play. Now, there's something sexy about that, because I remember reading David Hare's play about Lambert LaRue, who was supposed to be the anti-hero, the monster. And David's direction was, I remember the first act, and then the scene change. And I think David's description, a man in a suit stands center stage and addresses the audience. You're born into a tragic culture. I thought, I know these guys because he's in me as well. I know these people. They say the unspeakable things. They say the things that people are ashamed to even say. Now, I'm not a saint or anything like that, but I know that I know of the shock value. I know the shock value of everything that scares people. There's that wonderful poem, The Man at the Top of the Stair, or The Man Who Was on the Stair, Will She Go Away? That man who wouldn't, the invisible, the dark subconscious, the shadow inside us all. Yeah. And I think that's the richest part of us all, is that rich, dark shadow that's in us. And that's what appeals to the audience, I think. And I knew about Lecter as soon as I read Arthur, I know how this, the voice and everything came to me. And I knew that it was a winner. I knew that it was going to do something. And I'm not going to pretend to be modest. I knew that I could do it. So I went over to America and went for the first reading. And I knew there were a couple of question marks in people's eyes because this was an American part. And I think some of the production think, Tony Hopkins, he's so British, We sat in this room in Orion Studios and Jodie Foster was there. And the director, Jonathan Demme, wonderful director. And so we started reading. And I remember there was a couple of directors there, producers. And so I said, hello, you're not real FBI, are you? You know what you look like to me with a good bag, you cheap shoes. And somebody in the room said, oh my God. And I knew that I got them.
Yeah.
Then Jodie went off to film in Virginia, and I arrived in Pittsburgh, we were filming, and I knew then that I knew to a point that I wanted to have a specially designed green uniform.
Costume, yeah.
But he wouldn't. I said, but Lecter would pay somebody he persuaded somebody to tailor it. So I wanted them to be a monster killer, but a charming, brilliant man trapped in an insane brain.
Yes.
And to be absolutely still. And I remember that. And Dexter used to drum it into me, and John Dexter, Olivia, about stillness. And I thought, the more still you are, the more compelling you are. Absolutely. The quieter you are, you pull people into you.
Yeah, yeah.
And it's something I know how to do, and
You sure do. I've got a final question, which is a big one, and you can only have a few minutes to answer it. But you spoke just now about being British, Welsh, playing an American part, and you have played American president.
Yeah.
You played a lot of American parts. You live in America now. You sound, I would say, exactly as you sounded when you were a much younger man. You sound Welsh. I would know you were Welsh straight away.
Yeah.
I'm sure, knowing Wales a bit, that it has its claws in you.
Yeah.
And it will never let go. Are you American or are you Welsh?
I'm Welsh.
You're Welsh.
Yes, I am. I was there recently, last year, just after the father, and I mean, I'm back there all the time in my memory. And as I'm getting older, my memories are. I Google things, the streets of my hometown.
Yes.
You can press a button, they go through the streets.
Yeah, I know.
I look at houses that I lived in, my grandfather's house, and I travel through these streets. I mean, it's a bit of a crazy habit. I Google forward and think, oh my God, because they're photographs of the houses. It's that peculiar. So I'm haunted by Wales, and I love Wales. There's something that is in my veins. It's in my blood. It's everywhere. It's in all of me, and I don't know what the future holds, but I love being there and I love going back. I have some cousins there. We spent some time with them. And my wife, who's Colombian, she loves Wales as well, so you never know. But I love it, and I am Welsh. I'm very deeply Welsh.
Good. I remember, and I'm very fond of, a film called August, which you directed.
Yes.
The only time you've directed a film, I think.
Yes.
Which is a version of Uncle Vanya done in North Wales.
That's right.
And as I recollect, you wrote the music for the film too.
Yes.
I would urge people to seek it out. We're probably the least known Anthony Hopkins film.
Can I say to that, because I asked George Fenton if he would write the music for me. So he came over to the house. So I was living in London at that time. He came over to the house, and it was a rainy day. He said, I hear you do a little bit of composing. I said, no. He said, come and play for me. So I sat on the piano. He said, and he was smoking a cigarette. He said, come and play. Sounds pretty good to me. I said, really? Yeah, sounds terrific. A bit of Delius and a bit of Vaughan Williams. And I said, oh, thank you. Yeah. He said, well, I'll tell you what. He said, come over to the studio. And he's got a studio in Wigmore Street. I went over to the studio, and he had all the machinery with him, all the computers. And in those days, they had scoring people because, notations. And I remember going over to the studio, and another beautiful autumn day, sitting at his computer with all the keyboards and the screen of my film up there. I said, okay, let's go to the opening, the credits, walk along the cliffs. Okay, so what do you want? I said, well, I'd like full strings. He said, but. So I got these samples of full orchestral strings. He said, okay, do you want a cup of coffee? I said, yes. So we went off to the kitchen. He said, okay, well, press that button. So I pressed the button, played the opening orchestral. He came in, he said, sounds pretty good. Let's play it back. I said, okay. Perfect. I said, what else? I said, like an oboe. Oboe? Go ahead. So I would improvise the music in the oboe, because I improvised.
Lovely.
And he said, that's it, fine. And we did Hofer, and he said, that's it. At Wembley, he got the London Symphony Orchestra. He said, where's our composer? Come on, I want you to conduct. I said, but he took it. That was wonderful. I thank George very much, George Fenton.
There we are. Look, we have to come to an end, but I feel I could talk to you all afternoon. Good.
Pleasure talking to you.
Great talking to you too. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.